After being humiliated in front of a live audience on a trash TV talk show with a not-so-straight man confessing his crush on a completely straight man and revealing his fantasies to him, the guest completely snapped, leading to a tragedy that would play out over years and years. While the video of this show was previously lost media, it has since been found. When it came to daytime American television in the 90s, you'd have a hard time escaping all of the talk shows out there. While a lot of them started out innocent enough, they quickly realized that the more outlandish the topics and the more boundaries they pushed, the more viewers would turn in. That was where what they called trash TV really came about. On these shows, the host would usually attempt to force confrontations, arguments, and fights between the guests by purposely introducing controversial or antagonizing topics. The Jenny Jones Show was a talk show in that vein that started out much the same. Hosted by Jenny Jones herself and taped in Chicago, Illinois, the show started filming in September of 1991. Originally, the show was seen as a healthier, more grounded alternative to similar trash TV shows like Jerry Springer and, to a lesser extent, shows like Maury Povich. The first season of the show mainly focused on celebrity interviews and lifestyle topics. As you might expect though, bland and safe might be good and wholesome on paper, but it isn't really likely to garner the views that the more controversial rival talk shows would. The first season started out strong, showing up on 178 TV stations around the country, but partway through it was ranking at 104 out of 189 shows currently being tracked. Ratings were abysmal, and the show was on the verge of getting cancelled. But by the end of the first season, Jenny Jones hosted a special episode focusing on a single topic, her problems with her breast implants. People found this more intimate, serious topic much more engaging, and that episode actually performed much better than any other throughout the whole season. So it was decided the show would stay on, but they would be sticking to more provocative, serious topics from here on out. From season 2 onwards, most episodes were more emotional, argumentative, and divisive. In fact, the very first episode of Season 2 featured a discussion on sexual abuse of all things. Mainly, on each episode, a group of guests would talk on stage while Jenny, as host, would serve as a moderator and guide the conversation in the intended direction. She would allow the audience to engage as well, being free to ask questions to the guests on stage, which mainly resulted in the audience trolling the guests to get a laugh. There was one topic on the show that consistently performed very well, that of secret crushes. In these episodes, Jenny would call someone to the show, telling them that they had a secret admirer, urging them to guess who it might be before bringing said admirer onto stage to see the reaction. The guest would then be given a choice as to whether or not they would date this admirer or not. Pretty simple concept. While this may sound innocent enough, the show was forced to up the ante each time in order to keep the topic interesting. In October of 1994, the show hosted one of these episodes with a certain twist. Rather than secret crushes, it was secret gay crushes specifically. Jenny Jones enjoyed both these types of episodes and featuring gay guests on her show, finding the combination to be a fun angle. Not to mention, it was pretty good for ratings. In the end, topic selection was up to the producers, and Jenny wouldn't usually know what the topic would be until the night before. One of these episodes was about to take place. In order to get some guests, a card would be displayed on screen, asking anyone who wanted to reveal a secret crush to call into the show. Producers would talk with the callers, gauging interest, and if they found the person entertaining enough, then they would cold call the person they admired and ask them if they were interested in appearing on the show. Most of the screening for these people was done over the phone, with the producers giving the participants surprisingly little information about what was to occur. These producers didn't really give the guest any sort of background check or screens for any sort of history of mental illness. It was a different time, pre-9/11, pre-Columbine. Certain standards that are commonplace now were yet to be implemented at all. However, some people out there saw the dangers of episodes like this, which they called ambush TV, with at least one sociologist calling into the show to warn the producers of the risks they were taking with topics like these. This person was completely ignored. Guests were told that their secret admirer could either be a man or a woman. usually. But in some cases, if a guest seemed they wouldn't be too receptive to a same-sex secret admirer, they would tend to fudge the details a little bit, and that brings us to today's case. Here we had a group of 3 friends, Donna Riley, Scott Amador, and Jonathan Schmitz. Donna Riley was the center of this 3-way friendship, bringing everyone together. She was a single mother doing what she could to get by, living in a small apartment complex and working at a county court. She met a man named Scott Amador while he was walking along the side of the highway, asking him if he needed a ride. He gladly accepted, and she began to give him rides fairly often. This was when she learned that he was gay, which was a much bigger deal in the 90s. Scott had already come out to his family long before, though, and all of his siblings, and surprisingly, even his parents, were completely okay with it. He began living freely as an openly gay man, and from the way it seems, lived a fairly normal life, but not everyone was happy with it. This was a time when being gay was something that you mostly kept secret. While it was more accepted than in previous decades, it wasn't anything like it is today where you can fly a pride flag and find like-minded people relatively easily. It was still taboo, and it was something considered shameful at most, a bit embarrassing at the least. Donna then later met Jonathan Schmitz while he was working on her brother's car. He was a kind young guy living in the same apartment complex with a lot of car-related know-how, leading him to often work on friends' and neighbors' cars as a favor. After talking it up, the two became fast friends. He even helped her son build a car for the Pinewood Derby, something he greatly appreciated. One day, Donna and Scott were hanging out together when they came out to see Jonathan working on a car nearby. While they could only see the lower half of Jonathan's body as he was under the car, the 3 had a conversation together. Just from this conversation, Scott became very interested in Jonathan, feeling he was exactly his type and liking what he was able to see of him, at least, mainly his bottom half. While Donna has since denied that she tried to play matchmaker between the two, she did get the 3 hanging out together as friends. She would sometimes invite both Scott and Jonathan over for dinner at her place. One night, after her son went to bed, the 3 decided to watch a few movies together. Afterwards, they got locked into a long conversation. This was when it came up that Scott was gay. Jonathan, despite the era, was perfectly fine with it. It didn't really seem to bother him at all to be friends with a gay man, and the conversation continued for quite a while after that before the 2 men eventually left and went back to their own homes. After that night, Scott became more vocal to Donna about his interest in Jonathan. One day, while watching the Jenny Jones show, he saw one of those cards at the end of the show inviting people to come on to reveal their secret crush. He, in a Hail Mary moment, decided to call the show and tell them his story. He couldn't believe that they actually called him back to invite him on, and he soon called Donna in a fit of glee to tell her the news. He invited Donna to come onto the show with him, saying that the 2 could enjoy Chicago together while he was there. In fact, he told her that he wouldn't go unless she came. She didn't find this odd, thinking that it would just be some dumb fun. According to Donna, he didn't tell her why he was going to be on the show in the first place. She said that, when the Jenny Jones show called Scott in her presence, they didn't express interest to have her on the show either. This is very doubtful, however. There was a reason that Scott needed Donna to come on with him so badly. This show was going to be a bit of a bait and switch. It was going to be implied that Donna was Jonathan's secret admirer until, eventually, Jonathan would be ambushed by Scott coming out on stage instead. Donna claims that she was reluctant to participate, but she did quickly agree to play the part of the matchmaker/bait as soon as the show insisted that that be her character. Jonathan was notified about the show on or around March 2nd, 1995, and offered to fly out, only being told that a woman he knew wanted to reveal her secret crush to him on the show. Not knowing who it could even be, he decided to accept the show's offer and fly out to Chicago within only a few days. On March 6th, 1995, the show was all set to tape this new episode called Revealing Same-Sex Secret Crush. The episode was exactly what you would expect, with people coming on stage to be told that they would have a secret admirer only to be surprised that this admirer was someone of the same sex. This episode was intended to be part of the show's 4th season, with the show having done episodes similar to this before. This time, 6 guests would appear on the show. Were told that their admirer could be anyone, male or female. Some were intentionally misled. Jenny Jones would invite the person with the crush on stage, interview them briefly, specifically asking if they had any fantasies about the person, and then bring the crush on stage to see their reaction, talking to them for a bit afterwards. While talking to them, she would replay the admirer's sexual fantasies about them, leading to televised embarrassment and some very uncomfortable moments. Jenny opened by asking the audience how they would reveal their secret crush to someone, asking if they would, quote, tell that person that you're gay and that you hope he is on national television, which got a rave reaction. The first guest on stage was a trans individual named Jennifer who was very attracted to a local bartender. Richard was open to it and found Jennifer attractive, but wasn't looking to get into anything after just having signed divorce papers. Another guest was a man named Gary, a man with a crush on a guy named Dean who won a contest called Mr. Hotlanta. Dean was actually gay himself, but Gary was out of luck because he was already seeing someone. We then had a woman named Erica, who was into her husband's female co-worker, Sarah. Hoping to get some sort of three-way going, Erica asked Sarah how she felt, but was flatly rejected, with Sarah being married herself. We had Roni, who was attracted to a man named Jim. Jim said that Roni was not his type, but he might be open to hang out at least. Then there was a man named Eric who was very into a man named Dave, a zookeeper who he often saw at the mall. Dave was not into the idea, but stated that he would be fine being friends. The main spectacle of the show, of course, was the three-way connection between Donna, Scott, and Jonathan. Donna appeared on stage alongside Scott. Jenny revealed that Scott was going to confess his crush to Jonathan, asking him how they met and what his fantasy with Jonathan was.
Okay, you think about you have fantasies about him?
I've had a couple, yeah.
Yeah, you had when he was under the car, you had a fantasy about him.
Yeah, something to do with like brake oil, line snapping, and
tell us about, you have another one that involved, you were in a hammock or something? Tell us about that fantasy.
Yeah, actually, I got a pretty big hammock in my yard, and I thought about tying him up to my hammock.
And?
Well, it entails like whipped cream and champagne, stuff like that.
Jenny then asked Donna if she had tried to get the two together before, to which she said yes, saying that she would often try to get the two in the same room together.
So Donna, what are you doing to help out here? Have you tried to get them in the same room together?
Oh yeah.
John lives downstairs from you, right?
He lives downstairs from me. So so a lot of times John will come up for dinner and I'll give Scott a call and say, hey Scott, John's on his way over. So, Scott comes right over. And
Jenny asked if Jonathan knew Scott was gay and whether or not Jonathan was himself.
Now John, he knows you're gay, right?
Yeah.
Do you know that he is?
no.
Anything's possible.
You hope. Do you have any reason to think he is, Donna? I mean,
Not really. He said that his family kind of questioned him on it. He's a very open person, so it really wouldn't surprise me.
Donna then further explained how she would try to set the two up whenever possible.
okay, so you've gone as far, you're trying to set them up. When John's at your house, you invite Scott over? Is that how it works?
Oh, yeah.
Trying
we
to get them...
discuss him on the phone.
You
Scott,
do?
Yeah. We'll be talking, and I'll hear him pull in, because he's got a loud car. And,
This was followed by Scott further explaining his attraction to Jonathan.
and
Give us a
he's just
physical, before
really
he comes
hot
out,
for
give us
him.
a physical description. What is it that's so exciting about him to you?
He's got a cute little hard body. One you just want to pick up and put in your curio cabinet, dust him off once in a while.
You want to
cute.
physically pick him up?
Oh, he's just a tiny little cute thing. He's gorgeous.
Well,
And then, finally, Jenny brought Jonathan on stage. Scott greeted him with a very awkward hug while Jonathan smiled and laughed, appearing shy and embarrassed to even be there. Jenny asked him if he thought Donna was into him before very quickly revealing the true reason he was brought onto the show.
all right, let's see if he really is. Get the headphones off of John and let's have John come out here and see who has the crush on him. Here's John. Did you think Donna had the crush on you?
Did I? No, we're good friends. friends.
Well, guess what? It's Scott that has the crush on you.
You lied to me. Interesting, very interesting.
Interestingly enough, Scott immediately responded with a quiet, "You lied to me," still smiling while the audience cheers nearly drowned out his voice.
You lied to me.
Looking very uncomfortable, Jenny then replayed the video of Scott's fantasy while Jonathan covered his face with his hands. Jenny then asked him how he felt about all of this.
Did you have any idea that he liked you this much?
No. I did not.
Can you tell us what your status is? Are you involved with anybody, or?
No, but I am definitely heterosexual, I guess you could say.
Jonathan's face gradually dropped as he found it harder and harder to hide the embarrassment. After that, the show continued with more questions from the audience. While most of the questions were directed at other guests, Jenny took the chance to ask Jonathan a bit more about how he knew Donna and how he felt about Scott.
So, John, how you doing? Okay.
I'm doing good.
Are you at least flattered by this, or what does this do to your?
Oh yeah, I'm
What's it
flattered
going to do
by
to your relationship now?
To what relationship?
Your relationship with Scott, your friendship.
Actually, Scott was a guy. Donna lives upstairs from me, and Scott was a guy. One night I pulled in. She was looking at her brakes, and I was looking at the brakes too, and. Scott pulls in behind me and goes, well, your car's pretty funny because I drew this peace sign in the back of my car, and it's, it says Peace Man on it. And then Scott says, you look like a hippie in your car, and then you get out of your car. And then he told Donna that I was a good-looking guy. And Donna told me, and I said, well, it's flattering, but...
It's flattering, but you're not interested. There's no way. There's no way, right?
No, I'm...
She then asked Scott whether or not he was disappointed, to which he responded.
Well, at least you got it out. Are you very disappointed?
No, actually, no.
The thing
It's
is...
a nice compliment. It's a nice compliment. If
He'll be
nothing
more
else, it's a
comfortable around me, I
nice. It's a
think.
nice compliment to pay somebody. We'll take a break and come back with a woman. Are you ready for this? Listen now.
Scott, Donna, and Jonathan left the show and traveled back home. Things were fine for the first couple of days, with Scott being disappointed and Jonathan being embarrassed. That third day back home, however, on March 9th, Scott decided to give it one more try and wrote up a flirtatious note to leave on Jonathan's doorstep. The note, attached to a small flashing light, said, "If you want to turn this off, you'll have to use a tool. It takes a special tool." Seeing this as insult to injury, Jonathan completely snapped. Not owning a gun himself, he immediately went to the bank, took out money, and went to buy one, purchasing a 12-gauge shotgun. He drove straight out to Scott's mobile home and used the shotgun to bash the door open. Scott picked up a small chair and held it in front of him to protect himself. Jonathan then shot Scott twice, in the front and lower right side of his chest, leaving him lying on the ground, wheezing, smoke pluming from his body. He slowly passed away right there on the floor. Jonathan then drove over to a gas station near his sister's house to use the phone. He called the police himself, fully confessing to the killing, crying all the way as the operator tried to figure out what had happened.
Okay, why did you do that? Okay, I want you to calm down. Okay, the gun's in the car. Okay, I want you to try to calm down. Okay, I want you to stay in the line with me. I've got some help coming for you, okay? You did the right thing by calling me, okay? And we will help you. Okay? Touch your breath a little. Okay, can you tell me again why you shot the man? Because he's played a really big fucking thing on me. He's getting thrown the rest.
During the call, Jonathan said that his reason for killing Scott was, for one, he humiliated him on national television, and two, he was a homosexual. A lot of people came to see this as an extreme act of homophobia, while many others found the humiliation aspect to be the bigger deciding factor, with that final note on the doorstep pushing the humiliation beyond the breaking point. The police came out to the gas station and arrested Scott on the spot. He was slapped with charges of first-degree murder. The Ginny Jones Show quickly got word of this and flew into damage control mode. Needless to say, the episode would be pulled before it ever aired. That was the first step. Then, less than a week after the murder, Ginny recorded a statement to air on an episode of the show. In this statement, she made a point to place the blame on Jonathan alone, saying, "This tragedy is about the actions of Jonathan Schmitz." Both Scott and Jonathan's families were extremely critical of the show, placing the blame on the show for what had happened. Jonathan's father stated, "The talk shows, they're absolutely rotten. Had Ginny Jones not done this, this would have never happened." Jonathan's grandfather similarly told news outlets that Ginny may as well have been a triggerman in the murder. Scott's brother Frank issued a statement as well, saying, "I feel this murder would have not occurred if Ginny Jones hadn't exposed homosexuality, a sensitive issue in our society." It wasn't only the families who felt the show was, at least partially, to blame. Many news anchors placed the blame on Ambush TV, with some directly accusing the show of instigating the murder. Many talk show hosts with similar programs, however, came to Ginny Jones' defense. In fact, Jerry Springer himself spoke out on the issue, saying, "To suggest we have reached a point in our society where people don't take responsibility for their own actions, that this man could justify a murder because of a talk show is stupid on its face." The murder trial came around soon enough. Jonathan's attorneys blamed a good combination of factors for what had happened, such as Jonathan's bipolar disorder, hyperthyroidism, Jonathan's previous thoughts of ending his own life, an abusive father, and a traumatic childhood experience involving similar public humiliation. This was when his father pulled him into class by his hair, beating him with his belt in front of the entire class after he was caught skipping school. They also used what was called the gay panic defense, which was used when a defendant reacted negatively to advances from a same-sex individual, leading to a crime. This was done in order to get them a bit of sympathy from the public. This defense has been banned since, but it was used from time to time during that era. During the trial, it became fairly evident that a huge reason as to why Jonathan did what he did was out of fear of his parents. If the episode had aired, they might assume he was gay, or at the very least be disgusted that he had a gay friend. His father, upon hearing about the content of the episode, threw a chair in anger while screaming slurs. It appears that Jonathan felt he had no choice but to do this in order to prove to his father that he wasn't gay. Both Ginny Jones and the producers of the show were brought to testify, denying fault for what had happened. Ginny said that the crime had more to do with homophobia than anything else, saying that she felt it was tragic that he would rather be labeled a murderer than a homosexual. In addition to this trial, Scott's family decided to file a lawsuit against the Ginny Jones Show, Warner Brothers, and Telepictures Productions. They felt that negligence from these companies resulted in Scott's death directly. They were after a massive $75.1 million in damages. Attorneys specifically pointed out the Ambush TV nature of the episode, saying that the show should have known that a topic like this could result in very negative, possibly violent reactions. Producers argued that they had clearly told Jonathan that his admirer could be a man or a woman, but there wasn't any evidence for this. In fact, Jonathan was recorded saying, "You lied to me," right there on the tape. In fact, this trial was the only time that this episode was ever played in full. The jury watched the entire episode play out from start to finish, and it was very evident that Jonathan indeed was misled. Scott's family was awarded $25 million in damages. The Ginny Jones Show expressed their intention to appeal this verdict. On November 13th of 1996, the jury formally convicted Jonathan of murder, but on a lesser charge of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 25 to 50 years in prison, eventually being eligible for parole in 2017. After 2 years, the sentence was actually overturned in a court of appeal, but eventually he was retried and convicted once more, with the original sentence solidified. On October 23rd of 2002, the Ginny Jones Show and their affiliates managed to succeed in their appeal of the lawsuit. The court this time decided that Scott's murder was unforeseeable and that the studio had no responsibility in what happened hundreds of miles away after the filming had wrapped. Ginny was happy, remarking, "Scott Amador's murder was a horrible tragedy, but I have always believed that it was fundamentally wrong and unfair to blame the show." Scott's family tried to appeal the appeal, but they were denied. It goes without saying that Scott's murder resulted in an absolute media frenzy. The topic received widespread coverage at the time, being featured in any major news publication that one could imagine. Jenny Jones herself and others who worked on the show started receiving a flood of hate mail and even some death threats. Some shady tabloids even started to pester the show for a copy of the episode, some offering even as much as $100,000 for a clip. Many gay rights activists claim that Scott's murder was a prime example of anti-gay violence. After many expressed sympathy for Jonathan, even during the trial, many activists became outraged, especially at the gay panic defense, which was controversial even at the time. Numerous LGBT organizations urged individuals within the community not to appear on these types of talk shows for the time being, at least until the producers underwent sensitivity training. This incident discouraged many other talk shows from ever producing episodes similar in content to this. In fact, many shows came to realize that they really needed to start providing psychological screening for their guests before they would be allowed on these shows. The Jenny Jones Show surprisingly remained on the air without a substantial drop in ratings for the time being. In fact, quite to the contrary, this case was great for word of mouth, and the show received a huge spike in ratings directly after the murder, with people turning in hoping to see a similar catastrophe play out. However, by the time the dust settled, the lawsuits ended, and Jonathan's sentence was solidified, the show had gradually been wasting away. It managed to stay on the air until 2003, when it was revealed that the show had the lowest ratings of any daytime talk show. The show was canceled for good during May of that year. Scott's murder wasn't the only one related to these kinds of talk shows. The cases of Nancy Campbell-Panitz, who appeared on Jerry Springer, and Svetlana Orlova, who appeared on Patricia's Diary, drew a lot of comparisons to Scott's case. In 2017, Jonathan Schmitz was granted parole and subsequently released from prison after serving over 20 years behind bars. His time served was almost as short as possible given his sentencing, the reason being his consistent good behavior. Upon his release, paparazzi swarmed Jonathan and his family, hoping to get a story or some sort of reaction, but Jonathan said nothing.
How you doing? Hey, how does it feel to be free?
Get away
How does it feel to be free?
Get away
Don't
from
touch me, ma'am.
you.
How does it feel to be free, John? Do you have anything to say to Scott's family?
Do you want me to call the police?
Call the police. You go ahead. I'm on public property. Go ahead.
Go.
So, how does it
Love
feel
you
to be
guys.
free, John? Do
Have a great day,
you have anything to say to Scott's family?
Shut up, Mom.
Huh?
You need a real job, mister. Keep shaking. Love you guys. Have a
Thank
good
you.
time. Love you, Amanda. Bye. In the car.
Hey, John.
Love
Do you have anything to say?
Let's go. We gotta go home, guys.
Do you have anything to say to Scott's family?
Love you.
Jonathan was now 47 years old. Half of his life had been spent in prison. He went to live at his parents' house in Lapeer, Michigan, being kept under tight supervised parole until 2019. He was forced to undergo mandatory alcohol and drugs tests and was forbidden to own any sort of firearm or associate with any felons. On August 22nd of 2019, he was released from his parole. He is now a free man with a life in tatters. He avoids the public eye completely, only having been seen out and about a few times in total. In 2020, Netflix released a series called Trial by Media, in which cases similar to Jonathan and Scott's are chronicled. This case actually became the very first episode of the show. Jenny Jones and her producers were invited to appear and discuss what happened, but they declined. Scott's brother Frank was sad to see Jonathan released from prison. He made a public statement saying, "I'd like to know that he learned something, that he's a changed man, is no longer homophobic, and has gotten psychological care. I hope you are sorry for what you did." The episode in which Scott and Jonathan were featured remained lost, never having aired in public. The only time it was ever seen was in court, aside from a few short clips and screenshots that had leaked previously. That is, until 2023 when the entire uncut episode was found. This was due to Court TV uploading the recording of the entire trial, the lawsuit between Scott's family and the Jenny Jones Show. This trial lasted for hours and hours, but at one point the whole episode was indeed played for the court. It's a rough cut, never being finished for TV, but it's all there. Now we have yet another found piece of not safe for life lost media to remind us of the tragic events that occurred 3 days after what we see play out on screen. Once again, thank you for watching this episode. If you found it interesting, please give it a like as it really helps me out in the algorithm, and feel free to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. If you don't mind, go ahead and follow me on social media, because if anything were to ever happen to this account, again, that would probably be the only way you'd ever hear about it. I also have a Patreon account if you want to support the channel even further, which I always keep down in the description below. Channel memberships are back up too, so you can get the same benefits on there. This has been your host Kyle, thank you, and good night.